Okay, hello everyone. Uh, Today in this video, I'm talking about main battle fleets. This specific video is about a carrier-based battle fleet. I'm going to be explaining how you build it, how you use it, and briefly explaining where to fight battles and what you're going to be fighting against, for example, as Japan against the USA. So I'm using Japan since it's obviously a big naval nation. Um, all the main engagements, navy-wise, will be happening between these two countries. And yeah, I just picked Japan since I personally prefer playing as Japan. So, a carrier-based navy is pretty self-explanatory. It's also a very safe way to manage your resources if you don't want to overinvest into navy. It's quite controversial. There is a good chance that you'll use a navy if due to several factors which I'll explain at the end of the video, but overall you dedicate a lot less resources to building it, and it is very effective in the right conditions against an overwhelming enemy fleet. So I'm just going to be on the go showing you what designs you want for your fleet, what to do when, what researchers, design bureau, etc. So, doctrine-wise, these are the most important. I would advise you, if you want to have the best chance of winning, to max out this part of the doctrine and this part, just so your escort ships like cruisers and destroyers give you more escort efficiency. Went ahead and researched that. I mean, that's not going to be useful to you. Catapults, they're not very useful. Carrier 3s is a must. Destroyers 2 sometimes, yeah, can be useful. Otherwise, guns, definitely a must. Actually, out of these ones, you definitely want the improved medium battery. Improved light battery and improved heavy battery are not that useful to you at all. Dual purpose secondary battery is literally the best thing you can research out of the guns, so go for this as early as you can. Obviously, this is not as useful in a carrier navy rather than in a decisive navy that you'll build for the fleet and beam doctrine based on battleships and heavy ships. But specifically, the damage control is quite useful. Shell dies, not as useful. In engineering, a must is definitely the improved fire control system, plus 15% attack to everything. A radar would be good as well by 1940, since the war only starts in 1941/1942. So you have plenty of time to refit your ships with this. Let's move on to the carriers. I went ahead to research carrier 3s. These are the ones that you want in your fleet before the war starts. Ideally, you pick the Pacific Fleet Designer. So the way that designers work is even if you have 1 day of research left and you assign a designer, by the time the research finishes, if the designer is equipped, then your fleet gains, the ship that you've researched gains the bonus that is stated in the fleet designer. So if we pick this and research, for example, carrier 4s, so when go ahead and research carrier 4s, Carrier 4s should have the bonus, yes. So here, this little icon means that this design bureau is affecting the stats of this ship. So as you can see here, 75 deck space is because this gives you plus 25% deck space on every carrier that you are researching. So this one doesn't have the bonus, but ideally it should, and it would be very good if as Japan you can spare some political power to pick that design bureau. So going on to the design, you always use those slots for hangar space. Armor on carriers is literally one of the most useless things in the game. So is the AA. Your carriers will not be under attack by any ship as long as the escort efficiency is at 100. Even if it's lower than 100, then your capital ships will be targeted way before your carrier gets damaged. The only thing that could damage your carrier realistically is naval bombers that are launched from other carriers on the enemy fleet. But trust me, that rarely happens, and just increasing the cost of the aircraft carriers. But putting 80, which doesn't even give you that much protection, is a waste of resources in my book. So let's call it carrier 3. This is the design you want. You minimize the production cost, biggest speed for very good evasion, and so you can enter the battle quicker. Range also matters. You've got plenty of HP to withstand enemy attack anyway, and maxing out the deck space is very crucial. So you can have, as you're only limited to 4 carriers per battle, due to the 80% debuff if you have over 4 carriers in a battle. So you want to maximize the deck space on each carrier to maximize the amount of carrier planes that you can carry into battle. So yeah. The next thing is battleships. In a carrier-based fleet, especially as Japan, you only start with 6 battleships and 3 battle cruisers. So in this case, as you see, there are Fuso, Nagato. Yeah. So let's have a look at those designs. Nagato class. Nagato class is actually very good since it's got battery 2s. So what I advise you do is look at the refit cost. So right now, let's see the refit cost for Nagato. I'd advise you change the aircraft facilities since they're useless on battleships anyway to dual purpose secondary guns. They are very good all the time. Nothing here, adding another battery will just be too costly. Plus, don't mind, you should not have heavy battery 3 in the game at all. You won't have time to build those either. Anti-air, leave it as it is, no point of getting rid of it. You should be refitting those at about 1939, 1940, so by this time you would love to stick that in. This increases most of your stats by quite a substantial amount. As you see, the heavy attack increases by about 5 for a cost of 120, and if you pick radar, that also gives you plus 5% light attack and heavy attack. So ideally, in any sort of naval engagement scenario, you want all your heavy ships to be equipped with a radar at the maximum level that you've got it to, and at least a fire control system 2, which gives you plus 15% to everything. Refitting engines costs a lot, not practical, not worth it, definitely. Refitting armor, same thing, costs too much to refit. Replacing the dual secondary guns is always a good thing, doesn't cost much, and will always help you. So let's call it the Nagato refit. So remember, you have 6 battleships, out of which 3 are the Nagatos, and you are practically doubling the heavy and light attack on these ships by just adding the 20% modifiers and a few dual purpose guns onto it. So the Congo class is not as good, but still, the secondary batteries on this probably are not worth it, so stick the fire control, stick the radar in, rename it to whatever, Fuso refit, save it, refit the other 3 to this. A 20% buff will always help, especially it would take about 2 to 3 days to refit one of those ships anyway. Heavy cruisers, your heavy cruisers are very good. Insane torpedo attack, very good heavy attack, heavy piercing, good engine, good armor. You have about 16 to 20 of these at the start. Let's actually see. Yeah, you start with 16 heavy cruisers. Just amazing. They're just very good. The Mogami class, Tone class is also basically the same. Fire control, radar, cruiser refit. Always add those to heavy ships. Doesn't matter what heavy ship. Always useful. Costs almost nothing. Increases your stats by a very substantial amount. So I'm just going to add a production queue for, I'll keep it to 1. Carriers, you want 1 carrier, you probably will need more. As I said, if you overinvest into Navy, that will mean that your Air Force or your Army is lacking proper equipment or funding. which means that even if you win the naval war, you still won't be able to push some parts, for example India, which actually does not depend on the naval supremacy. Yeah, so light cruisers, destroyers, you should never refit those. If you're going to be building light cruisers, build them from scratch. Same goes with destroyers. Again, if I'm talking about the carrier-based navy here, you want the cheapest destroyer possible, remove everything but the gun, max engine, which is level 1. As Japan, you do not have researched destroyer 2s, so actually this is a very good opportunity as you have this lovely coastal fleet designer, Sasebo Naval Arsenal. As you see, the screens only gain max range debuffs and nothing else, unlike the capital ships which get a massive debuff. So with this designer, bringing down the cost by a quarter of the price is very good. So as I see, I've replaced designers. My carrier 4 still has the old one since it was researched using that, and if we research cruiser 3s and destroyer 3s, for example, you should be building destroyers too, in the best scenario anyway. As you see, these are very cheap, even with max equipment. Imagine what I do when I strip them down to the bare bones. You should probably keep one torpedo tube, very useful, and have a look at the production cost. Costs absolutely nothing. I usually build about 150 of those by the war. I call it the destroyer meat because they're supposed to be expendable. They are basically the thing that takes the damage for you, for your capital ships. They must have the best maximum speed for evasion. They'll be drawing most of the light attack fire towards them. The quicker they are, the less damage they get, and the more they can survive for. So you want them to make as cheap as possible and as fast as possible. And adding a bit of torpedo attack is also very good. Don't bother about the fire control, not worth in the ship, as you don't have any stats that will be affected by it. Yeah, light cruisers, if you still have spare dockyards to build light cruisers, I suggest you build cruiser 2s. Cruiser 3s come way too late to be mass produced. Light cruisers are a very good thing. Indeed, if you research the medium battery 3, that also gives you the light cruiser battery, which you can put 2 of those in, and ideally you can actually take up all the space. Remember that a light cruiser is considered a screening ship, therefore it's not getting the massive debuff that you get for capital ships. Actually, on this ship, since you've got such high light attack, it would be very good to stick the radar and the fire control system in while completely getting rid of the armor. Light cruisers don't need any armor. They are quick, they are agile, they deal a ton of damage, and adding armor would just increase the cost by 700, which you completely don't need. Plus the armor that you get is absolutely nothing for its price, and this will just slow your ship down, and actually you'll get less damage from the evasion that you get from this extra 3 knots of speed than from the 8 armor that you have, considering the average piercing of a light cruiser is this, and knowing you'll be going up against heavy cruisers as well, they will pierce you completely. That armor will give you no buffs. So this is the cruiser spam. Ideally, these are the ships that you should be producing one by one, and then putting your production focus mainly on spamming those destroyers, spamming those light cruisers, nothing else. So, that's what your production queue should look like. You see we've got very cheap destroyers. You should keep that at infinite. You don't want to put a cap on it anyway unless you want to produce convoys, which might be useful if you're getting convoy ready quite hard. You see, even on low efficiency, you're producing about 1 destroyer per month on 9 dockyards, which is awesome. Imagine what will happen if you double, triple, quadruple the dockyard output. This will be absolutely insane. You'll be churning out those things as quickly as you churn out your planes in some cases, especially if you have about 100 dockyards as Japan. So, let's go ahead and build those 4 carriers. turn on the instant construction, works on ships. Boom. Those 4 carriers are built. Let's see where they all are. Yeah, so they are right here. Let's go ahead and add them to the main fleet and get rid of the other 4 carriers. You should keep those around. They can be quite useful by just putting naval bombers onto them and using them for port striking. Just as a mobile airfield, generally quite good, but these are the ones you want to keep in your main fleet. Most of the things that I'm going to say from now on are just my experience of games and how things work. I would do a test run if I could, but that I'm afraid that's going to take too much time, and just next time you test it out in a game, you'll see what I mean by what I say next. All the carriers should be full with naval bombers. Never add carrier fighters to your carriers. They are useless in naval engagements because they get no buffs from being on a carrier. In exchange, the naval bomber is the best thing you can have on a carrier. Naval bombers, the carrier-based versions, get plus 500. So 5 times the attack. So let's see how much attack they have. The naval bomber, unupgraded, has 20 naval attack. That means per game hour, at a chance, they target a ship, and 1 naval bomber deals 20 damage to that specific ship in 1 hour of the battle. Must say that there is only 1 sortie of a carrier squadron, if you can call it so, every 8 hours. So per day of a naval battle, and naval battles usually last for about 5 to 6 days, maybe a week sometimes. So each one of your carrier naval bombers deals 20 damage to a ship every 8 hours, so during its sortie. If you have the full doctrine researched and the Tora buffs that Japan gets, you see the sortie efficiency here is increased by 20%, another 20 here, and I think these are, and another 10 here, so that's plus 50. Plus the focus called First Air Fleet gives you plus 20% as well, which is awesome. You can literally bring that 8 hours, 1 sortie every 8 hours to 1 sortie every 4 hours, practically doubling your damage from carriers. And on top of that, the 500% attack buff to carrier naval bombers, absolutely insane. If you have a stack of 75 naval bombers on here, as you should, by the way, on naval, actually it works with every naval bomber. Never split them up into small groups. Always keep them at a stack of whatever, 400, 800, 1,000. That way they're way more effective at doing their tasks. They're less likely to be destroyed. They deal way more damage, and generally they take out capital ships like it's nothing if they are in a massive stack rather than split up. So those should be full with carrier and naval bombers. Don't bother about the carrier fighters. Carrier fighters are useless. They get no buffs, again, during such a short period of time during which the naval battle is taking place. You won't be able to shoot down enough planes to stop the enemy carriers from dealing damage to you. Waste of deck space. You'd much rather have way higher naval attack from your naval bombers by having more of them. So, for a carrier fleet, you ideally want this general, this admiral, Isoroku Yamamoto. It's the best naval admiral in the game for carriers. Let's have a look at his details and max out my command power so I can actually upgrade him. You see you have 2 trait slots here available, and I'll tell you which ones to pick. The torpedo bomber, air attack, air mission and mission efficiency. Again, not the best thing, but these are the only types of planes that you'll be using as Japan on your carriers, and ideally as every nation. So this is definitely a worthy pick, since you shouldn't leave those trait spots open, since admirals very rarely level up themselves, and in here the lone wolf is a very good thing. enemy fleet size penalty. If the US has a bigger fleet than you, they get a debuff to positioning, and positioning is basically their overall stats. So if they have 100% positioning, which is, by the way, calculated by the game, by the amount of capital ships that they have against the number of capital ships that you have. And the US starts with way more capital ships than you, so you ideally, even having a bigger fleet of screens, should have a higher positioning than them. So the way it works is, if your light attack, for example, is at 1,000 in total in a naval battle, and your positioning is 100, it stays at 1,000. If it's 90, it's brought down by 10%, so 900, and it goes on like that. If it's at 0, I'm pretty sure it's you lose half of your stats overall. But again, positioning does not affect naval bombers launched from carriers. Naval bombers are a separate thing in a battle. They follow the rules of aviation or navy. They don't get those debuffs. Therefore, the only actual buffs that they get from having this guy is the air control, the naval air targeting from carriers, and the air attack and the air mission efficiency. So Lone Wolf, very good pick for this guy. Let's attach him and see what stats he's got. Fleet coordination, basically positioning, 12%. Can save you sometimes, but wouldn't rely on it. Damage, this dude has a lot of damage that you can pick up. I'm pretty sure the overall stats are 30% damage for him and plus 32% positioning. A very good general overall. Definitely a must. Advisors. There was a guy here which gave you sortie efficiency. Again, this is a very OP guy. Can't keep telling people that Japan is very overpowered if you use their navy correctly. Nobody wants to listen. The US does not have those types of overpowered military high command that can basically win the war for you, but Japan does. Capital ships, less so important since you're not building those really. Air defense, absolutely useless. Carriers, way forward. Pick that guy. This guy, if you're not building a carrier navy, pick this guy. Very useful. Absolutely useless. All weather. This guy is a must for a carrier, and I'll explain why. So definitely pick him. And the Chief of Navy. Either that, the size of battle, which will be very useful since you're going to be churning out those ships anyway. Naval aviation, not very good because you don't really need naval air targeting. You don't need air agility because your fighters not going to be, your naval bombers won't be getting shot down anyway. So the decisive battle guy, definitely for both types of main battle fleets. This National Spirit, do whatever you want. It'll just affect your dockyard output. Doesn't affect anything else. So now onto the most interesting part. Why this is a massive gamble. When you click on the sea zones, you can see what type of sea terrain it is. This is a shallow sea. This, you can see the debuffs that it gives right here. This is a deep ocean. As you see, nearly everything here gets a debuff, especially destroyers. And you can see you can utilize this to see what ships your enemy has built and give them the biggest debuff and get the ships that you've built the most buffs. These are all deep oceans, pretty sure. South China Sea, just a normal ocean, quite a good place for an engagement, but listen to this. This is a place where you should never, ever do a naval engagement. This gives debuffs to almost every ship, limits you very greatly. This zone is very good for convoy raiding with your submarines, as it gives you minus 20% visibility, but for a fleet, as you see, this even gives debuffs to carriers, which is absolutely awful. So yeah, and if you're ever having a battle in the sea zone, get out of there as soon as you can, start retreating, never go back into here again. In the shallow sea, doesn't act much. Also must say, land-based air power in any naval battle deals much less damage than the carrier-based naval power. air power, sorry. Ideally, you don't need any naval bombers over your naval battle. You just need fighters, heavy fighters, anything that can give you air superiority. If you have air superiority, your positioning goes up by 20%, your enemy's positioning goes down by 20%. Now onto the weather. That's why it is a gamble. Depends on what type of weather is in the sea zone whilst you're having a battle affects how useful your carriers are. You see, a storm, carrier traffic minus 80%, naval strike minus 40%. This is absolutely crippling for your air force. Say you had 20%, 20 naval attack from your carrier naval bombers, plus 500%, that's 100 naval attack, plus another, I think 20% if you like upgrade them, have like a design bureau for your planes. I think it's this one, yeah, let's say about 120 attack. Get rid of 80 of it. You're back down to 20 effectively. Your carrier fighters, your carrier naval bombers are going to be as effective as land-based ones. This renders your entire fleet completely useless. Never ever go into a battle with the storm modifier, and I'm pretty sure the rain, the rain also brings it down. This is heavily your success heavily depended on chance of the weather being friendly towards you or not. If your enemy has a battleship based fleet, they'll completely destroy you. That's why you actually want to pick the bad weather penalty guy, because he gets rid of part of that debuff, and that applies to all air power, not just naval based. This can help you a lot in the rain. You can still engage in the rain. It's only about 20% debuff, but it halves it, so a very useful guy to have. Anyway, orders wise, your main battle fleet should never have submarines in it. Submarines bring down the positioning by a substantial amount, as they generally don't have them in your main battle fleet. You should always have destroyers and everything else, not subs. Main battle fleet always set to always engage. As soon as your fleet starts to retreat, obviously it gains more speed from retreat, but also its attack is cut down in about 50%. So you'll be receiving damage, dealing half your damage, and during the retreat you'll most likely lose a substantial amount of your fleet, or just get it damaged, which will send you for repair for about 2 months to get all your capital ships back into the order that you want them to be. Repair priority, you'll be pounded by naval bombers, I imagine. If you don't want to micro your navy too hard, set it to medium priority, and never ever turn on automatic spill off. This will ruin your navy completely. It's better to have 6 damaged battleships in your navy than none at all, which are currently going to repair, because a battleship, even a damaged one, going to a port by itself to repair is a very easy target for naval bombers. Even if it encounters 10, it's dead. Never ever have it on. Automatic reinforcements, never use that anyway. I don't know how it works, honestly. Never seen anybody use it before. Practically useless. Remember these settings. Pride of the fleet. I generally don't have time or political power to reassign it. I mean, if you build the Yamato, then go for it. This adds a few buffs. Pretty sure it adds just... it gives ship experience gain and chance to receive critical hit. Nothing else. I mean, can be useful, but nothing out of the ordinary. So never, by the way, unless you're convoy raiding, never set it to anything, or maybe in some cases set it to naval invasion support. But ideally, you want your fleet to be operated by hand. So if there is a naval engagement here, you click on not on the main group icon, because that won't let you pick where your fleet goes. Click on the little one. That will allow it to manually to move it here. Keep an eye out on the org as well. when your ships are moving. They gain less org, so before going into a major engagement, keep your fleet in port. So it has 100% org, and the org on ships basically is like on any other unit in the game, especially infantry. Runs out of org, it automatically starts to retreat. Yeah, so these are basically the basics of a carrier-based fleet. I would talk about numbers more in a different video. It'll just take too long to have it in this one. The next video is going to be on a battleship-based navy, again for the Pacific, and maybe I'll do a tutorial on the Mediterranean as well for Italy. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one.